Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and it's time to talk patch 7 of Baldurs Gate 3 and some builds that you want to consider for that. Basically with patch 7 we got a lot of returning players who haven't played in a long time, people who really want to check out the modding and mess with their playthroughs, and obviously we have all those new evil endings, 13 in fact, so it's quite a lot to discover and try. With that in mind then, I put together this little list of really strong builds, well-known stuff that would actually fit really well in an evil playthrough. Now obviously with the way Baldurs Gate 3 works, you got the Wither respec, infinite respecking, and specific items that raise your stats, like the Hill Giant Elixir or the amulets. I'm going to try keep this a little bit more casual, but if you want to be optimal and aim for these things and abuse these things, then be my guest. But I'll cover the class, the leveling, the items you want to aim for, why it's good, why it works, and why it fits that evil theme. So let's just get started with the first one, which is of course an Oathbreaker Paladin. It's hard to find something that's going to hit this theme better than that. A Paladin that's broken their oath and gone kind of evil, whether you lean into the necromancy or not. But then in terms of power of this, it's incredibly strong due to the aura of hate that you get that enhances your damage output. There are two kind of very well accepted ways to go about this. That's a 7-5 split multi-class, likely with warlock, or just, you know, full commit to the Oathbreaker Paladin, or 12 levels if you want to. But let's cover the multi-class since I do think that's stronger. Now obviously this is a funny one because you need to actually break your oath to play it. As I said, you're going to want the aura of hate, but for the purpose of this video, I need to respec and show you the leveling. To start with, I recommend Oath of Ancients just for, you know, a really strong frontliner in general. The healing radiance is just awesome, but you will break the oath as soon as you feel ready, as soon as you find the opportunity. For starting stats, we max out charisma as our main damage source, alongside strength, what we leave at 14. Just keep in mind that you can use the Hill Giant Elixirs or other options to increase your strength, and you should absolutely be doing that with a build like this that will rely on strength. For this build, we're using two-hand weapons, so of course you'll need great weapon fighting as your fighting style. We pushed the Paladin to 4 and then on to 5 pretty quickly here, but at 4 we're going to get our first feat, which is going to be Savage Attacker. When making melee weapon attacks, you roll your damage dice twice and use the highest result, so your average DPS is just going to be higher. At level 5 of the Paladin, we get our first extra attack, which is going to be awesome. At level 6, we get Aura of Protection. And finally, at level 7, where we leave the Paladin, we get our main aura of the build that you're using. I have Aura of Warding here because I've got Oath of Ancients. But when you've broken your oath, this will be Aura of Hate. At 7 levels into Paladin though, this is where we're going to multi-class into the Warlock. You're going to take the Great Old One for its key feature, Mortal Reminder. When you land a critical hit, which is going to happen very often in this build, the creature must succeed a Wisdom saving throw and those nearby, or they become frightened. Not only can they not move, but they now have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, just really scaling how destructive you are in a fight. I also make sure to pick up Hex because we want to Hex targets to absolutely destroy them to burst them down. Gives us extra damage with Necrotic. And then the other slot can be helpful in terms of Armor of Agathes as an option. At level 2 on the Warlock, we have our Eldritch Invocations. The utility of Repelling Blast is incredible on your Eldritch Blasts, but other than that, it's up to you what you're going to be taking with these. Agonizing Blast is going to make that Eldritch Blast a bigger damage source, but we're not really using it for that. So utility options like Beguiling Influence and Devil Sight, these are classic picks. Of course, when you reach your Pack Boon at level 3 on the Warlock, it's Pact of the Blade. At 4 on the Warlock, we have our next feat, which is definitely going to be Ability Improvement, where we can push our Charisma to 19, and we can always get that extra level of Charisma by working with the Hag in Act 1. At level 5 in your Warlock though, you reach Deepen Pact, and we get our last Eldritch Invocation, whatever you like, and very nicely a level 3 spell. In that case, it is quite hard to beat Counterspell for those big moments when a nasty spell is coming in. Now, in terms of gear, of course, there are tons of incredible items to aim for, but here's just a list of options. For the helmet, the Diadem of Arcane Synergy is very important. When you inflict a condition, you get Arcane Synergy, so your weapon attacks now deal extra damage, which is just perfect synergy. For Cloak, I just have Cloak Protection, extra AC. We can get the Adamantine Splint Armor in Act 1, reducing all damage you take, completely mitigating all chance for you to be critically hit. The Spellmite gloves are incredible, leading to potential extra damage. On the boots, I just have Evasive Shoes for extra AC. Now on the weapon, Act 1 Sword of Justice is going to be a great option, but obviously long term you're going to be aiming for a legendary, and Balduran's Giant Slayer is absolutely insane, but that'll be Act 3. On the amulet, it's up to you in terms of utility, but there's no doubt that the Spell Savant amulet is a good one, getting an extra level 2 spell slot for your smites. Killer's Sweetheart's really nice. It's just going to guarantee a critical hit. And Caustic Band is nice too, just giving our weapon attacks that we're doing all the time extra acid damage. But yeah, that's the Oathbreaker Paladin mix with, of course, a warlock. We try to get haste from someone in the party and be buffed up as much as possible before fully committing to the target. If you can, you'll have the hex on the target beforehand and anything activated with your items. We'll attack a massive amount of times and smite consistently through this, relying on Thunderous Smite as an option, but mostly Divine Smites, and your main attacks to just smash over and over and over. It's simple and it's very effective and very fun and should suit an evil playthrough. Next up, let's go for a classic concept. There's three kind of spellcaster builds that are very well known. I think this one fits the evil concept the best. It's basically dealing ticks of damage per spellcast many times as you go. So with a base level of Scorching Ray here, we're able to do multiple projectiles, up to 3, but if you upcast it, you increase the amount that you're able to cast. So the basis of the build is very simple. Increase the value per hit of these casts, and you would do this same thing with Magic Missile build or Eldritch Blast if you're going full warlock, but I like the idea of burning my foes really effectively, and as you can see, it's going to be great at that, dealing many ticks of damage per Scorching Ray, as well as using extra utility through AoE with Fireball, having your defensive spells like Shield or Control with whole person, whole monster, and then obviously, like a classic concept for anything like this when using a sorcerer, is running your twin spell so that you're able to cast haste on yourself and another party member, maybe one of your main strikers or damage dealers, so that you're able to get those extra attacks even further throughout the combat. The way you're going to increase the damage per tick of the projectiles is through various different items. For example, one of the early things you'll get is Spell Sparkler, which gives you these lightning charges as you attack with spells or cantrips. And in particular with fire, you have the Hat of Fire Acuity, another early game item. You deal fire damage, you gain Arcane Acuity, giving you even more bonuses. So in terms of leveling, we're going to pick the Sorcerer and go all the way. Your starting cantrips don't really matter, but it is a good idea to have Fireball. And Friends is always very useful. In terms of starting spells then, Shield and Mage Armor are going to be key. You want to get your extra AC, and then Shield is just insane. Obviously, we go Draconic Bloodline. This is very important because we're going to go red for fire. At level 6, spells that deal fire damage are more powerful, and you also become resistant to fire damage. So once you hit 6 and beyond, you start to really spike with this build. For starting stats, we're going to go with 17 Charisma and 16 Dexterity. Charisma is our main scaler for all of our spells, right? But also Dexterity to get us high on the turn order so we can blast before anything happens. So we manage our stats like so, with the third priority to Constitution for helpful, survivability and concentration. At level 2, you get your first meta magic, where we're going to want to take Twinned and Extended to work with. Twinned allows us to target an extra creature, whether that's an ally or an enemy, and Extended is just the utility. At level 3 though, we definitely want Quickened, getting off more spell cast per turn because we're using a bonus action instead of a full action. Also at this level, we'll reach the Scorching Ray, which is going to be our key component of dealing damage. At level 4, of course, we're going to get our feat, where we can actually get our Charisma up to 19, and you can also get that +1 to Charisma if you choose to work with Anti-Ethel in Act 1. Once you hit level 5, you're going to be able to get level 3 spells, so you're definitely going to want quite a few. You're looking for Fireball, you're looking for Haste, you're looking for Counterspell, and so we'll gather these over the next few levels. At level 8, we have another feat we can get. There's options that you could consider, like Alert, to really help your initiative, so you're always going first. Though it's a very good idea to consider Warcaster to really help your concentration, to prevent the loss of your concentration when doing Haste, which we're always going to be doing. When you start to get to higher level spells though, we're looking for Hold Person and Hold Monster as options for control, around turns where we're mostly just absolutely blasting Scorching Rays, or maybe a Fireball. When you do reach your max level spell, there's a lot of reasons to pick any of these, but I must admit the idea of an Honor Mode, Globe of Invulnerability for certain mechanics always appeals. For the final feat though, it's important to take Dual Wielder. The point of this is so that you're able to actually use 2 main staffs at once, as I'll show in the gear section in a moment. We do this pretty late though, because you're going to get Marka Heshkir, the legendary staff, once you actually hit Act 3, and as soon as you're in there, to be honest. But those are the 12 levels. Let's now talk about gear, what I'm wearing and why. Now that I've got the Dual Wielder, I can actually equip Marka Heshkir to have both staffs equipped. So here I still have Spell Sparkle as I showed earlier for the lightning charges that we get as we use our spells, but Marka Heshkir is obviously the best thing you can equip, providing Arcane Battery, meaning you don't actually have to consume a spell slot if you activate that before using the next spell. And very importantly, you're also going to get Koreshka's Favor as an ability, imbuing yourself with elemental energy. This allows you to grab some spells from different schools. However, when you equip Flame of Wrath in particular, Your fire spells deal additional fire damage equal to your proficiency bonus, so we're just making ourselves even stronger with fire, and that is certainly an incredible thing. Now, outside of the weapons, we have the Fire Hat of Acuity, as I've shown. For a cloak of protection, just a bit of extra AC is really nice. You see I'm standing here at 19 AC. We have the Potent Robe, which is kind of an awkward one. Your cantrips deal additional damage equal to your charisma modifier. This is insane for Eldritch Blast, for example, but we're using a spell rather than a cantrip when using Scorching Ray. However, there are cantrips that you can use that are using fire, like Firebolt, but it's also providing an extra AC, and at the start of your turn, you get temporary hit points equal to your charisma modifier, and that is no small thing either. For other items, it's pretty much classic general stuff. When the wearer deals spell damage while illuminated by a light source, they also inflict radiating orb upon the target for 2 turns. This is why the cantrip light is pretty relevant. You infuse yourself with that light, and then you're generating light around yourself to work with these items. Further, we have the Callous Glow Ring for that purpose as well, extra damage to creatures that are currently illuminated. On the amulet though, we have the Spine Shudder Amulet for the resonance. Casting ranged spell attacks inflicts reverberation on your target. Building that up, you eventually get this burst of thunder damage and maybe knock the enemy prone. And so that's the very simple version of the build, all Sorcerer, all about fire, and you can modify this how you like, maybe taking a point in Warlock, should you want that. Next then, it's time to talk about throwing builds, of which there are 2 top contenders really, though there's one I personally prefer, and maybe it fits with this evil theme a bit better. This is the Eldritch Knight version then of the classic thrower build, which relies on Tavern Brawler to enhance the damage, though the classic version leans more into frenzied throwing in particular. This, by comparison, has more burst, since you have things like action burst and the improved extra attack, on top of the usual throwing build items. Basically, you're just throwing your weapon many times a turn for huge per turn DPS, whether you go the EK version or frenzied throwing either way. Though I should warn you, with this build in particular, it has no charisma to speak of, so it's certainly not worthy of a party face. So, our starting stats are 17 strength, 14 dex, 16 constitution, dumping your int, and of course charisma, most of all to make that possible. Again, it's up to you to use strength increasing items and min-max your stats as much as you like in your own playthroughs, abusing the withers respec whenever you need. We begin as a fighter with defense fighting style though, for the perks of that, with level 2 then netting us action surge for extra power between the rest to use it. At level 3, we do get our subclass Eldritch Knight, providing weapon bond, and this is where it really gets going because it means any weapon is suddenly viable for a throw build, instead of only weapons that have that passive to get it to return to you after a throw, which is indeed very limited. Also, we can get shield for this in this setup, which is an incredible defensive tool. At level 4, we can pick up the all-important Tavern Brawler though, meaning we get to add our strength modifier to those throws twice, and a level from this into strength gets us to 18. At 5th level, we get extra attack, and at 6, we get another feat because we're a fighter, which allows us to push our strength very nicely to 20. At this point, it's time for the tiny bit of multiclass, which is where we're going to use Cleric for the War domain, providing the War Priest passive. You can spend War Priest charges to make an extra attack as a bonus attack after a weapon attack, and that works with throwing. So compared to Frenzied Thrower as a build, this has more utility. You can consider Sanctuary for tight moments, or go for Bless for more output for your concentration. From here though, it's all into Fighter until you reach level 11 Fighter and 1 Cleric, getting you the improved extra attack. On the way there, you'll get another feat, which can definitely be Alert. It's a massive boost to Initiative, which is going to be a real boon. In terms of a fast gear rundown for this one, it's just anything you can find that's going to increase damage per attack hit, of which, you know, there's a lot in this game, tied likely to gloves, like Uninhibited Kushago, that stands out for throwing attacks, as well as, say, the Ring of Flinging. Naturally, as a weapon, you're going to aim for Nirulna, though, the legendary trident that you get at the start of Act 3. That provides incredible thunder damage and a small AoE per throw, and awesome weapon skills too. But before then, you know, it's that weapon bond for whatever you want to use. I also recommend using a shield for extra AC, and maybe other perks depending on the shield. We can wear heavy armor in this build for better defense, so it's just good for your options. To play it, you're just throwing your weapon many times a turn, relying on spell slots for utility based on the situation. And again, yeah, I love this EK version for weapon bond most of all. It changes how the early days of a playthrough goes for throwing builds until Act 3. Okay, next up is an absolute classic and probably one of the most well-known strong builds in the game. It's basically Tavern Brawler, Open Hand Monk, where you're using Thief a rogue subclass to get an extra bonus action. A lot of your attacks are using your fists, right? Using bonus actions like Flurry of Blows around your main hand punches. This is one of the strongest striker style builds in the game, and I like it for an evil playthrough. While it's not, monkish as it were, it's the idea of beating your opponents down with your bare hands. So a massive part of why this is so strong is of course the feat Tavern Brawler. When you make an unarmed attack or improvised weapon or throw thing, your strength modifier is added twice to the damage and attack rolls. So with there being many ways to massively increase your strength in this game, such as those elixirs of the hill giants, you kind of want to permanently have that with a build like this using Tavern Brawler so that you can have high stats in other aspects. Now for leveling, we basically are going to end up 8 monk and 4 rogue, though again you could go 9-3 if you like. Using withers kind of BS and also elixirs of strength, you're going to overcome your starting stats that are going to be a bit weird, but for leveling just know that you'll push monk to level 6, and then when you hit total level 7 you could respec, start with 1 level on thief, get the proficiency bonuses from that, then get 6 levels in monk, and yeah, you're good to go from there. The starting stats are really awkward though, because a build like this is going to rely on elixirs of giant strength and those kind of modifiers, leaving you with lots of stats for dexterity, constitution, and wisdom as you do scale on that as well. These starting stats are a good starting point to go with though, and you'll have to clean it up as you respec later in the game. But high constitution helps the fact that you're a bit squishy, and high dex is going to help with the whole initiative. Leveling a monk though is pretty damn simple because you pretty much just level and then you get given stuff. There's not a lot of choices to be made. Just make sure that you take Way of the Open Hand as your subclass when you hit it for Flurry of Blows. And of course for your feat we need Tavern Brawler at level 4, which you can go ahead and give a level to Constitution to get it to 18 very conveniently. Level 5 you get extra attack, which is going to be very impactful, a nice big power spike. When we've got 6 levels into monk then we can start running rogue. Like I say, this is where you respec to get the first level in rogue for proficiencies, but sleight of hand and stealth are very useful. We level rogue all the way to 4, getting our benefits of cunning actions for bonus action uses. And at level 3, make sure you're taking the Thief subclass for that extra bonus action. At level 4, you're going to get an extra feat, which is really nice, for even more ability improvement. The numbers here are obviously wrong because you'll be doing respecking yourself with withers, but you're aiming for 18 dexterity, but also pushing your wisdom high as well. And then we just go back to monk and get that to level 8 for the final leveling, getting us 1 more feat. Here we can push our wisdom up. But yeah, it's an awkward one to describe this one because there's so much respecking that needs to be done when you get the items and the consumables that raise your strength. So on that note, I do recommend following a set guide to help you with the respecking process to manage your stats. Leveling aside, there's a bunch of items you can consider for a build like this. I like movement and speed in general. So the haste helm to get you going, giving you momentum at the start of combat. Easy picks for cloak, there's loads of options, but a bit of AC from cloak of protection is always nice. Your chest piece can be the graceful cloth, at least early, though obviously long term, you're going to be aiming for the soul of rejuvenation. On the gloves, again, an optimal pick would be the gloves of soul catching, but you can't get this kind of stuff at the start of the game. So anything that's increasing damage that you do per attack, such as the Gloves of Cinder and Sizzle here, that meaning your unarmed attacks deal extra fire damage as you attack, it's going to massively increase your DPS. For the boots, it's definitely the boots of uninhibited Kushigo, anything that provides utility and relevance to your gameplay. And then for the rings, we have Ring of Protection for more AC, and Crusher's Ring, again, for more movement. There are ways you could make this more optimal, but I think this is a reasonable kind of idea to aim for. And also a little bonus tip, you can use range slots to give you passive kind of stat stick bonuses, since you're going to be using your bare hands for melee anyway. So yes, go nuts with this build and unleash the Flurry of Blows on your foes like crazy. Finally, here's just a very different one. I talked with Josh about how I don't really see bards as evil characters really, but he described to me a bard that's using their high charisma and kind of influence to get whatever he wants as quite an evil concept. This is going to be the ultimate evil party face. For bard though, there's many ways you could run a good one, and even this build you could run and set up in different ways too. But what we're going to go for is a College of Swords bard using Titan String, the bow as the center, attacking many times a turn from range. This bow in particular though can be getting Act 1 and increases your damage based on your strength modifier. So if you just equip the Hill Giant Club, or maybe you rely on the elixirs to modify your strength stat, you can get ridiculous output, allowing us to dump strength from the beginning. So with that in mind, we start with 16 dex, 14 constitution and 16 charisma on this one, leaving strength at 8 and the rest at 10. For the leveling path, we push to level 2 for the Song of Rest, which is basically like having 3 short rests, alongside the Jack of all trades passive to really improve this party face concept. At 3, we grab our subclass, the College of Swords, which unlocks the brilliant flourish actions, the key to what we'll be doing in combat. Of these, we use the slashing flourish mainly to attack a target twice a use, And at level 4, we get our first feat, which is definitely going to be Sharpshooter. We continue into Bard level 5 now, which means Bardic Inspirations, and we strongly recommend for the spell a Glyph of Warding for the strong utility damage that provides. At level 6, we get extra attack from the subclass, on top of the slashing flourish multiple attacks too, so it really starts to hit its own at this point. Next, we start to multiclass, which means 3 levels into Rogue for Thief to begin with. Doing that means we get Sneak Attack for potential burst whenever you have advantage, and Thief itself is going to grant Fast Hands for the extra bonus action. We use the extra bonus action quite a lot on Cunning Hide at the end of a turn in combat. That means we can set up sneak attacks really well. One more level into Rogue means a feat though, so we can use that to grab 18 dex nicely. Now at a total level of 10, we can use our other multi-class, which is Fighter. Through just 2 levels into this, we can pick up Archery as a fighting style, helping with the Sharpshooter feat. And finally, we're also going to get Action Surge for yet another way to deal another attack in a turn. And as a Bard, we have 3 short rests in this build, so you'll be able to use Action Surge a lot. In terms of gear to consider, a lot of this comes in the early game. Titan String itself is in the Zentrum hideout, so you can get that really early and then replace it in Act 3 with Gaunter. Key items outside of the weapon will be things like Gloves of Archery for extra damage with ranged attacks, just like say the Marksmanship hat. We can also run medium armor in this, so we can make use of the busted Adamantine Scale Mail, which reduces all damage you take by 1 and makes you immune to crits. Melee equipment can also be interesting in terms of the stat sticks and utility they provide. Likely for most of this that'll be the Hill Giant Strength Club for that passive, but also you can use a shield for more AC too. Then it's just items to increase your burst in a turn or other perks like extra AC. Overall though with this, you can have great damage output, many attacks a turn, lots of utility, but for a lot of this outside of combat, just an amazing party face for all your potential evil choices. But there you have it. That's our overview of 5 pretty well-known top-tier builds that would fit the theme of an evil playthrough. If you guys have other suggestions, of which, you know, there can be many, let us know in the comments. And you know, at this point in the game, it definitely doesn't need to be OP meta anyway. Most, if anything, can beat the game at this stage with a good player behind it. But yeah, until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.